Bienvenidos, segunda jornada desde el Stage Industry and Logistics de este SIL, la 22ª edición. Después del parón de 2 años por la COVID, volvemos a hablar de logística en un punto de encuentro de networking donde se presentarán más de 100 innovaciones a nivel internacional durante estos 3 días, pero también pasarán más de 650 speakers, 80 sesiones y sobre todo en este stage donde ahora mismo damos el inicio. Bien, como decíamos, antes por eso vamos a agradecer a nuestros sponsors que lo hacen posible, AMB y Cimalsa, pero también Prologis, Project 44, Saba, eZone Dubai, l'Ajuntament de Barcelona, Barcelona Activa, la Diputació de Barcelona, Renfe y Correos. Dejadme decir, ahora estaba amb el català, que esta primera sesión será en inglés. Por lo tanto, si nos estáis escuchando también vía online, recordad que podéis descargaros la aplicación All You Say con el código SIL y el password 2022 y podréis escuchar la traducción simultánea al español. Bien, de entrada también dejadme agradecer la presencia hoy, Joan, me permitirás, de Xavier Flores, secretario general de Infraestructuras dentro del Ministerio de Transportes, Movilidad y Agenda Urbana, y también al señor Isidre Gavín, secretari de Territori y Movilidad de la Generalitat de Cataluña. Muchísimas gracias también por contar con vosotros, con ustedes. Bien, let's start with the first panel of the day that will a little over 2 hours. It gathers the opinion of 18 speakers who will tell us about railway in a debate that we have entitled the European Year of Railway is over. Know what? For example, it's necessary to integrate the long-distance truck trailers to the railway, a more efficient transport. For all these reasons, we have Joan Amorós from Fermet, a multi-sector business association whose objective is to unite the southern and northern of Europe. Thanks, Joan, for joining us today, and thanks to all the participants that have joined us. Thank you. Whatever you want.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming. Bon dia, bonjour, buenos días, good morning to everybody. In principle, I think that the key authorities, you will close the session, okay? Or you prefer to start?
No,
okay?
We close.
Well, then let's start. First of all, I would like to pass the floor to Goffred Smith from European Shippers Council. Goffred, if you want.
Yeah, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a big pleasure speaking here to you in the beautiful city of Barcelona. Perhaps a short explanation on what the European Shippers Council is and does. It's an organization of traders, of importers, exporters, and producers of goods. Our members are the national shippers councils. We have also corporate members, and we have associations like Fermet as our member. Our mission is that goods reach their destination at the right condition, at the right time, at an affordable price, and also in the most sustainable way. And there, of course, is also railway coming in and combined transport coming in. Supply chain collaboration, digitization, and innovation are important tools for this to improve the collaboration in the supply chain. The title of this workshop is the Year of the Rail is Over? And my question is this actually the case? But because rail is so important and relevant. If we follow the newspapers and the socials, we see, for instance, that there is an immense lack of drivers in the road transport. We see the energy crisis now popping up. We see congestion on our roads again. And we see sustainability and emission things which are in fact very, very important. So the momentum to change for rail is now. Are there no challenges? Yeah, of course there are still challenges. Challenges are, for instance, in rail, it's the image of rail. It's the capacity on the reliability. It's the bottlenecks on the railway network. And it's perhaps also sometimes the innovation in the sector. So for that reason, it's also that important that FairMet have taken the initiative in making this study. This study is giving us, in fact, well-informed insights, and it will be presented later today in the state of play in European rail. And it suggests also innovations. Some of them are very practical, some of them we have to study further, I think. But it makes also clear that some actions are still needed. And it's important to start with actions, for instance, from member states and the Commission. So it's important that the Commission and member states take steps also to improve, in fact, the use and the present network. So that means, in fact, the state-of-the-art network, but also the automation, exchange of data, and so on. Today, it's also important that existing bottlenecks are taken away, and that, in fact, also there is a clear solution between the share of capacity between passengers and freight. Further investment in innovations, like, for instance, the digital train and QE-later are very important. To create a legal framework on the combined transport is high on our wish list. I think this is important to have that here. And also to develop a labeling for transport, a green labeling for transport, so consumers can see that goods have been transported in a sustainable way. And I think it's also important to not penalize other transport modes, but in fact to make clear that transport is clear. For us as associations, it's important that we feed policymakers, we share successes and have also the success story from our members, and that we avoid negative messages on other modes. That we continue, and that's our final word because I see the indications, that we continue our collaboration in bodies like the Sector Statement Group, which in fact makes it clear that, that we make steps in making railway even more attractive. So with that, I thank you for your attention, and I will be with you during the whole session. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Wilfried, for your presentation. Now, if it's possible, through streaming, Mr. Alfonso Hidalgo, UNESID Director Logistics and Markets, could be possible to interconnect?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. Good morning. Am I online?
Yes.
Okay.
You are online.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you to the organizers of the SIL, and thank you to FairMet for this invitation. I will try to change more or less on the fly from Spanish to English, but I hope it's okay. First of all, why do I thank to you for the organization or for inviting me? It's not just a question of just politeness, but for UNESID, which is the association which represents all the steel industry, the steel manufacturers in Spain, railway is really important. And it's not because of just my analysis, but it's because our associates, the member companies of UNESID, all the steel producers and tube producers in Spain really want to use more the railway, and it's in their plans, their strategic plans include a stronger use of railway. So it's really an opportunity for me to be here and give my views, which relies on the views of the people who I work with. First of all, just to give a broad idea for steel in Spain, Spain is a strong exporter of steel. Okay, we export almost 2 million tons a year to France, 1 million tons to Italy, more than 1.1 million tons to Portugal, 700,000 tons to Germany, even 255,000 tons to Poland. And railway is less than 4% of the total of these exports. Okay, with the presence of railway in export is significant only to Portugal. 13% of the exports of steel products from Spain to Portugal are done by railway, but then the rest goes down to Italy 2.3% and to Poland just negligible 0.1. No? Instead, 60% of the exports to Poland go by ship. But 74% of the exports to Belgium go by ship, and Belgium is not that far away as to be wiped out by the ships. When I think that railway has a chance now. So there's an opportunity which has not been taken into account for multimodal export, for railway export from Spain to France and to Germany. There are really millions of tons flowing every year in that direction. They go to industrial areas which are really very demanding and are conscious also that railway and sustainability and low emissions are good arguments in order to use the railway, and are areas where the automobile sector is really strong, and also the automobile sector is a sector which is also conscious about this. No? So well, there's an opportunity, and this is my first message. So please, everyone who thinks who have a solution which is suitable for steel exports, please call to the manufacturers, to the steel industries, because they are not much in Spain. It's easy to get their contacts, and I'm sure that they will listen. Then focusing into the issue of the year of the railway, first thing I did was looking at the website of the Transport Ministry about this year, no? And it's very general, which of course I think is the message that the ministry has to send is a general one. But let me focus in three. They use three ideas: safety, sustainability, and technology. And safety, of course, it's okay, but we take it for granted. Nobody, no logistics manager uses the railway because it's safe, because okay, we already know, no? And so that's not a point. Sustainability, more or less similar. Sustainability is the reason why everybody wants to change a significant part of their freights from the road to the rail. That's the issue. Everybody knows. So you don't have to convince the industries, the carriers, that railway is sustainable in order to make the change. And the second point is technology. And inside technology, there were several messages for passengers, but also there appeared the really important word, which is traceability. No, that's really the meaning. A logistics manager who decides to go into railway, to start to use railway, really needs traceability, needs reliability, needs service, and probably this is the way which probably doesn't need much in infrastructure. Of course, improvements are always welcome, but it's a matter of management. No? Basically, where the train will never be able to compete with the road in flexibility, we all know. No? And but let me look this the other way around. When we didn't have the high-speed train between Madrid and Barcelona, we had the puente aéreo, no? A very flexible service by plane between the two cities, and we all enjoyed it very much. Is the train able to give that flexibility? Probably not. But now many of us have changed from the plane to the train, which is not flexible, but has a rigidity which is also good, because we know that travel time is fixed, and we know when we'll arrive there without any problem. So rigidity can be good if it complies, okay? And if the train system, the railway system is able to do the same with freight that has been done very successfully with passengers, then many more people will jump from the road to the railway. And in this jump,
Mr. Hidalgo,
yep.
1 minute, please, because there are a lot of speakers.
Okay. No, I just want to say that in this jump, operators must consider the people, the companies which do not use it yet. Companies who use complete trains now, okay, may use a bit more, but the really important jump will be in people who do not use single wagons and need to start to use single wagons, and that's where service must be improved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hidalgo. I fully agree with you that we need to move to railway, but according to your speech, we saw that with Portugal there is no problem, or you have 35%. Why? Because the gauge of the track is the same. The problem is that with the European Union, all countries, the gauge is different. Most of the factories, steel mill factories, are not corrected international gauge, and even there is a lack of connection with the intermodal terminals as well, international gauge. I suppose that in the coming years it will be solved, and then your aims in order to improve the railway share in the transport of steel products will become more successful. Thank you. Now let's move to Ralph Schulze, IRR President. Ralph, when you will.
I have my presentation?
Yes, please.
Buenos dias, ladies and gentlemen. The biggest room in the world is room for improvement. So what we just heard from my friend Gottfried and also from Mr. Hidalgo, of course, there is a lot still to be done, but we say that the year of rail is over, but it's only a starting point. Unfortunately, this year of rail was mainly focused on passengers and less on rail freight, but I think also here we have possibilities and opportunities to improve. As UIR, we are the Industry Association of Combined Transport in Europe, and we are running a campaign called Combined Transport for European Union, CT for Europe. And what is important to understand here is that the two big issues of the moment are the climate and the energy efficiency. And these are where the Commission poses very clear objectives, which we only can achieve if combined transport is successful. So our statement is very clear that door-to-door combined transport, where you integrate rail into the logistics chain, is the future of freight transport in Europe. Through the intelligent interconnection of rail, road and waterways, intermodal freight transport stands for a sustainable greenhouse gas reduction of up to 90% and a reduction of energy demand of up to 70%. At the same time, intermodal transport leads to better working conditions for truck drivers and sustainable relief of congested roads and their residents. Zero carbon combined transport is a reality today and will deliver the decarbonization of inland freight transport on a well-to-wheel basis by 2050. Our campaign has three phases. The first phase started in November last year, and it is about the door-to-door combined transport contribution today. And the results of the study were really interesting. 40 to 70% greater energy efficiency than the unimodal road haulage were the results, and 60 to 90% smaller carbon footprint than the unimodal trucking alternative. The second phase, which started 2 weeks ago, and where we also presented a study, is about the zero carbon combined transport, which is technically possible already today. There's no need for scientific breakthroughs like hydrogen on long distances on the truck, and the zero carbon combined transport can deliver carbon-free door-to-door freight transport by 2050. Our next European Intermodal Summit will be on the 1st of December this year, and there we will establish a roadmap to a zero-carbon combined transport world, the low-risk and affordable path to carbon-free freight transportation, and the annual investment between today and 2050 will deliver it. A coherent legislative regulatory actions will also be necessary, because what is important is that you, of course, not only need the right frame conditions on the infrastructure side, on the operations side, but also on the legislative framework side. Very shortly, if you look back in history, the whole story of combined transport started in 1950, 1960, with the invention of the container, with the invention of the box. It was really a revolution, and you could connect the continents in a complete different way. In the 70s, it was about maintaining land transport in Europe in a time of oil crisis, and we are back to crisis now. In the 80s and 90s, it was about reducing pollution and mitigating road congestion and road accidents. Only in the year 2000, we started to think about, it was Loyola de Palacio, about modal shift to curb the unabated growth of road haulage. And modal shift, I think, today is still the biggest leverage we have to achieve our climate goals. 2030 is the first step in a row of steps that the Commission has defined. 370 billion ton kilometers of rail, meaning 50% is intermodal today, should be increased by 130 billion. And of course, the goal of 2050, where you want to double rail freight and to triple combined transport, is that rail freight should be 800 billion ton kilometers, while long distance trucking should be under the 500 billion ton kilometers. The main challenges of the day can be solved by combined transport. It is the excessive carbon emissions from the road transport. It is the truck driver shortage. Please always remind that the average age of a truck driver in Germany is 59 years. So we have an issue here with a shortage. Hundreds of thousands of long-distance truckers will retire in the next decade without replacement. And the third challenge, of course, is energy dependence on external sources. Europe cannot provide for its energy needs today, which becomes a security risk for its economy and for the society. Again, if you look at the goals, 55% reduction until 2030, this is the Fit for 55 package, and full carbon neutrality by 2050. As I said, 40 to 70% greater energy efficiency through combined transport, and 60 to 90% smaller carbon footprint also to combined transport if you compare it directly to the road. Of course, we need green energies, and of course we would like to focus on wind, on water, and on the sun, because we think these are the more sustainable sources of energy. Zero carbon combined transport is feasible already today with the use of direct electricity that comes from solar power plants, windmills, hydroelectric plants, smart today, ready for the 2030 targets of Fit for 55. Concretely, this means that we can reach the climate goals using combined transport. And we need the road on the first mile and on the last mile. We are dependent on the road and we like road. We are not against road. But if there are alternatives on long distances, let's take the alternatives. And the road part, first mile and last mile, can be by battery electric trucks running directly on renewable generated electricity. The transshipment, and this is really one of the main points. In the study of Joanna Moros of Fermed, you will see that transshipment terminals play an enormous role. The transshipment is important to go from one mode of transport to the other mode of transport. It is the most important interface. And the terminals offer direct entry for electric line locomotives and operate exclusively electric transshipment technologies that directly use renewably generated electricity. And the third part is the rail transport itself, electrically powered from the shunting to the line traction using renewable electricity from the source as well. The idea is to have efficiency across the board. Instantly reduce dependency on external energy sources due to lower energy intensity and capability to directly use renewable electricity, and of course carbon neutrality by 2050. And regarding the labor efficiency, you all know about the mobility package. I think lots of good things have been done on the social part, but I think we could even do more. And I don't think that Article 4 of the Combined Transport Directive, which states that there's an equivalence between the road and the intermodal part, where really you have to focus on, I don't think that this option, which is the mobility package for the member states, should be taken to suspend the Article 4. I see that I have 0 minutes left. Just a few words on the EU bubble and the member state level in parallel. Our actions, our campaign is not running in Brussels. It is also running in every member state. And I had already a visit with the Spanish ministry some weeks ago. And it's very, very important that the member states work on the legislative packages that the Commission is preparing, being the directive on combined transport, the directive on weights and dimensions, the regulation on rail freight corridors, and the new idea of the Commission, a regulation on count emissions, how to measure emissions, plus the 10T. I must say this is really a strong package Never ever the Commission has been so tough in putting everything together on the logistics and transport side. So we have a real opportunity. Here you see our galaxy, the whole stars and starlets in our environment. I don't want to go into details, but what I want to say is that first of all, we should try to avoid transport. Where it is not possible, we have to make it more sustainable. Where we need transport, we have to make it greener. Where really we think that we can integrate alternatives, more sustainable alternatives, into the logistics chains, we have to do it. And the leverage we have in our hands today is the modal shift. So it's about avoiding, it's about shifting, and last but not least, about improving. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I kindly ask you, Shirley, to incorporate Fermet in your galaxy, because I saw that he's not there.
You are there, but you are not as an MOU partner. You are in the peers in Brussels, but you are there.
Okay, thank you.
Don't bother.
No problem. Well, now I kindly ask Mr. Adam Tolosi, Director General and member of the board of East-West General Terminal in Hungary. He is as well the Fermet Vice President for Eastern Europe, to take the floor, please. Could you arrange the interconnection? Okay, fantastic.
Greetings to everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So greetings again. Thank you, Mr. Amoros. Thank you for Fermet Association this opportunity. Probably you know that we are developing a brand new intermodal terminal at the Hungarian-Ukrainian border, at the border crossing of the European Union, which will have basically the highest capacity at this border crossing. And as a very first start, I would like to show you a short video about the testing of our equipment. Do we have this video? Can you show it? Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes. So this was a very short summary regarding the current status of the project. Independently from the non-expected events in our neighbor country, there is a very significant demand from clients regarding our services, and we are under pressure to start the operation as soon as possible, which will take place in the upcoming weeks. Short summary about the technical background. Theoretical capacity of the terminal is 1 million TEU per year. We have more than 850-meter long railway tracks, which means that we can receive full length of trains on both narrow gauge and both wide gauge railway tracks. We have around 10,000 TEU storage capacity for containers, including reefer containers, containers loaded with dangerous goods. We have a warehouse up to 14,000 quadrat meters capacity, which can be extended. When we started the project, we decided to apply the most advanced technologies like the intermodal cranes, the OCR gates. We will have a private 5G network within the area of the terminal, which is developed together with Vodafone and Huawei. And besides our intermodal services, we have separated company for full spectrum of customs services. We have a customs agency, and we will have, let's say, a railway operator company with every single permit to be able to provide railway services between the border crossing of Hungary and Ukraine and the terminal. So let's say we will able to provide for a spectrum of intermodal services. We have daily visitors. There's a huge interest from Asia and Europe in respect of the conception and the efficiency of the terminal. So everybody is welcome to visit us and start the negotiations about the cooperation. I'm at your service if you have any questions.
Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much, Mr. Tolosi, for your explanation. In fact, with the study that we are now doing, we saw the important bottleneck that we have in the interconnection with Eastern countries, in Poland particularly. Then your terminal will be very important in order to avoid such important bottleneck in spite of the war in Ukraine, but we hope that this war will finish as soon as possible, and then your terminal will be one of the most efficient, I suppose, because it's a very impressive terminal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now let's go to make a short presentation of the study that we are developing. Could you put the presentation, please? Okay, next one. What happened? Well, in any case, what I can say to you is that this is a huge study. We have started the study in July 19. We foresee to finish the study in September this year, by the end of September, beginning of October, more or less. And then we foresee to make a huge presentation of the study in Brussels in November 15, in which you are all of you invited to participate. Next one, please. Next. Next, please. Next. Oh, wait.
I can do it for you.
Okay, thank you. Well, the problem that we have, Mr. Ralph Schulze has explained it, Mr. Wilfried Smith has explained it. We need to move the goods by combined transport, But the problem is that the rail is completely stagnant. When we create Fairbet, 18%, today is 18%. This is the reality. Then, please, next one. How we could achieve 30%, that is what the European Commission asked for. This is the problem. We can make the terminals greener, but how we can solve this problem? Next, please. The point is to concentrate the investments. This is the problem that we have. The investments to improve the infrastructure in Europe is made completely at the criteria of the member states. Of course, there is a coordination of different corridors, fantastic, but finally, the decision is of the member states, and the reality is that we are fully stagnant in the railroad. Then, in the study, what we have made is to analyze where is the traffic in the European Union core network. Next one, please. Well, the study has different parts. When the first one is to identify the traffic all over Europe, not only railway. We have identified the traffic in inland waterways, the traffic in road, the traffic in railway. This is a huge analysis in which we split the sections in small sections like 20, 50 kilometers. We have analyzed in detail. We have also determined where are the main logistic hubs in Europe to be interconnected. We have at the same time identified what we call the backbone network. That is where the 65% of the traffic of the European Union is concentrated. And here is where we have to invest. This is the point. At the same time, we have analyzed the terminals. Terminals that, in our opinion, we have to change the name. In the ports, we agree that is terminals, no? But in the inland, frankly speaking, we think that is much better to say intermodal exchanger, because terminal that end is a non-profitable terminal at all. And frankly speaking, 99% of the terminals in Europe are dead-end terminals. It's incredible. It's incredible. Frankly speaking, incredible. But this is the reality, okay? Then we have analyzed the terminals, the capacity of the terminals, and also the capacity of the interconnection links among all the terminals in Europe, okay? Then another important point is to define the best procedure in order to interlink all the terminals and main hubs in the European Union. And later on, we'll present the first system that is a Fermat proposal to improve the situation. In fact, we foresee to start, we will see, to start in the backbone network. This is where the traffic is. And then we will also present an action plan, and as well we'll present today the first results regarding the environmental and socioeconomic analysis. Next, please. Well, next, please. This is when we start. This is a huge study. We have 3,600 people days work. Now we have spent more or less 3,000. And as I said, we foresee to finish by September. There are about 24 people working in different intensity all over Europe in this study. And as you will see, it's a quite impressive study. Next one, please. Well, the key conclusions are that we have to invest where the traffic is. And the traffic is concentrated in 29% of the extended core network, because as you know, now the European Commission has extended the core network. It's fantastic, more and more kilometers, but finally very difficult to arrange such huge amount of kilometers. Then, if we concentrate the investments in 18,000 kilometers, we could achieve the 65% of the traffic. And in the peripheral states, of course, we need to look how we can improve the traffic as well in the 65% of more crowded corridors inside every member state. We have also identified the main hubs, and also we have established this new system that practically is to put the railway at the service of the road. The road is the most flexible system. Then the railway has to be at the service of the road and has to be as flexible as the road. If not, never we will change from road to rail. Next, please. Well, only to tell you that we have made a huge data collection from different sources. Next, please. Here is only to show you the detail of the study in which we analyze section by section all over Europe. Not only railway, as I said, also road, parallel waterways, and also inland waterways. Well, next, please. This is the result. Here is where the traffic is in the European Union. As thicker is the road, more traffic, okay? Here is where we have to concentrate the investments. That's clear. If we concentrate the investments where there is no traffic, we, frankly speaking, could not move from road to rail. Next, please. Well, I stop here. Then later we will explain in more detail the study. And now I am very kind to ask Mr. Gir Gavin, that is the Secretary General of Infrastructure in the Catalan government, to take the floor, please.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Welcome to all of you, the panelists, the participants. Thank you very much, Mr. Flores, for being here today with us. Thank you for Fermet for organizing this session. It's very necessary and very interesting. I will give you a short version of the Catalan government vision about these questions. For Catalan government, logistics is a priority. Catalonia represents the 26% of Spanish export. In Spain, only 5% of goods go by train. Intermodality is very, very few. Recently, the Catalan government defined a Catalan logistic strategy with public and private operators for go on. In this seminar, we will treat very important matters. The study of Fermet, Mr. Amorós explained a short version in this time about optimization of the traffic and the model change that represents a very, very complete and high quality work. A fast, flexible and integrated system of train transport, and what about sustainable logistics? In the treatment of these matters, I would like to suggest all of you to take into consideration some elements of context under Catalan government view. First, the fact that today, 1st of June, we are a week before the meeting of the Strategic Catalan Board of the Mediterranean Corridor that is going to be held in Barcelona with the foreseen presence of the coordinator of the corridor, Mrs. Iveta Radikova, in which the state of execution of the corridor's action in Catalonia, the major issues pending at this time, and the most relevant proposal for action will be raised. This will take place in the context of a chronic backwardness of the Mediterranean corridor and the knowledge that in 2021, the central government has only executed 36% of the planned budget for infrastructure. Infrastructure is not sufficient, but is necessary. Secondly, we are now facing the proposal of modification of the Regulations 10T published by the Commission in December of 2021 that is currently under discussion and raising three main issues. First one, it aims to take transport greener by providing suitable infrastructure to relieve congestion and reduce greenhouse gas, in particular, increase the share of the railway. Second one, it aims by promoting multimodality and interoperability between 10T transport modes. Of particular note is the planned renewal of bottlenecks and missing links, as well as the improvement of the multimodality and interoperability of the European transport system. At present, many of the elements that will determine the feasibility and effectiveness of the road-to-trail modal system, as proposed in the study to be debated today, depend on the efficiency of the TEN-T governance tools, reinforcing the European Commission's ability to intervene in the area of investing by the states through information and monitoring instruments, including coordinators' capacity. Within the new scenarios set out in the estimated schedules 2030, 2040, 2050, as regards the aspects of interest to the Generalitat in relation to this situation, it is worth highlighting the initiatives relating to the establishment of priority measures that strengthen international connectivity and accessibility and enable integration and interoperability between modes, very important, recover abandoned connections and resolve existing bottlenecks, especially in cross-border sections, and preserve the operational capacity of existing infrastructures and improve their quality in terms of the safety, regularity, and efficiency of transport systems and operations. These measures are specially referred to in Article 12 of the draft TEN-T regulation. And with regard to the issues currently on the table, we must ask ourselves how to respond to the fact that when the works on the section of the corridor to the border with France are completed, the existing international gauge border crossing will not have the capacity to absorb all the freight traffic generated by these installations. For this reason, the Generalitat of Catalonia, the Catalan government, has been demanding from the competent authorities, in this case the Spanish central government, that a new dedicated freight corridor be designed that is not shared with high-speed passenger trains, and that until this new corridor is built and operational, one of the two existing Iberian gauge tracks that currently connect this corridor with the Portbou border crossing be transformed into a standard gauge track. In the same vein, another very relevant issue has been voiced through the demands in relation to the current state of the Spanish-French cross-border section, especially the need to take all necessary steps with the Spanish and French governments to speed up to design and execution of rail projects that will give the corridor real and effective capacity to meet current and future traffic demands. This action by the Commission will be essential to avoid bottlenecks at the border crossing and on the Perpignan-Montpellier section, which would make it possible to exploit the full capacity of the Spanish section of the corridor once the works have been completed. Finally, and to focus on the study that is subject of today's session, it is clear that apart from improvement in transport chains and in the areas of efficiency and competitiveness, the indisputable outcome of the optimization of traffic and the modal shift in the service of freight transport will be a more decarbonized and environmentally sustainable Europe. And that means investing and acting, making decisions with greater efficiency and speed, as far as we are already quite distant from the expected calendar. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, now in order to close this opening session, we kindly ask Mr. Xavier Flores, Infrastructure Secretary General for Ministry of Transport, Spanish government, to take the floor.
Okay, thanks so much, Joan. Amic Joan, bon dia. Good morning to everyone. Thanks so much for giving me this opportunity. I know that we are out of time, absolutely, but allow me to share with you some ideas about the issue that we are speaking about today here. First of all, 4-5%. You know what is it? 4-5%. You have said before, this is the model shift of the railway merchandise at Spain for the last, not this year, for the last 5, 10, 20, 30, perhaps. We are speaking a lot about railway, a lot of the benefits of the railway, but we are instead in this position, in this model shift. We need to, not the 18% like Europe that you show, wow, this in the Euro slide with the 18% of Europe, but the Spain is only 4-5%. And for a lot of years ago, when the road was not so competitive like now, we need to do a reflection about this because it's important. We need to change this. Our goal for 2030 for the Spanish government is only 10%, but this is a big goal to achieve this goal. I want, before to speak about what we want to do, I want to speak, I cannot resist the temptation of say, all of us, we know the benefit for the planet of the railway. All of us. And on every presentation, we repeat the benefit to save the planet than have the railway. What I think that the issue is how we save the companies and how we help the companies. And we say, why someone put his merchandise in our train? Why? How can we incentivize this? Not to save the planet, that is a good thing, obviously. But why someone risk to put the merchandise at the railway? And how can we do this more flexible? And at the end, for these companies that bid at the railway, to do best price, time, fiability, at the end, competitiveness. This is the key. If we speak only about the big things of the railway, we are not focused at the real issue, at the real question. That is, how can we help to be more competitive our companies? What do we need to do we think and we are working? I think the market is changing. The people have more interest about low zero carbon products, etc. And this help the railway, obviously. The market is changing, and this will help us. But we need to increase the good things that we are doing or we want to do, and to do new things, obviously. In this moment, we have a big opportunity because we have the European funds, and the European funds have a lot of money with destination for all these action, all these terminals that we can see at the video, for example, and we have more than 6,000 million euros at the European funds destined for 2026 for just this kind of actions. We have a plan, we have the funds at the plan of recuperation, transformation, resiliency, but we have the plan Mercancías 30 that we are six axes. Seem very classical, I think, but the first one is infrastructure, second is management capacity, third is terminals, fourth is railway highway, and fifth is digitalization. And there's one, the sixth, that for me is so interesting and new, that is help as grants, is more than 900 million to directly help companies and to help this pass from road to the railway. How? In this moment, just in the last April 29th, the BOE, the official bulletin, published just the new grant for 520 million euros destined for the modernization of the rolling stock, to build terminals, to do things directly to the companies, directly to the private sector. Private sector and public sector, we are partners on this. The exit of the companies of merchandise is all success. Without this success, we cannot increase this modal shift. And for that, this 520 destined to help for this chain on that rolling stock, digitalization, etc., etc. And we have 60 million euros destined to eco-incentives. Eco-incentives it means that we give directly for every ton, kilometer than the company is transporting, we pay money for this, because we pay this external cost that we are saving from the road. But not to everyone, only to these companies that are growing. If you grow to 8%, you have all this money. If you grow less, you have this money, but the percentage that you can justify. In this sense, we want to give this money for the companies that are bidding to grow in this market directly. This is a very new thing. First time that we do this. First time that we do this some ambitious plan from help the companies to this transformation. Because we need to think things new. Things new, like you are now, you present. I'm a privilege because Joan and his team present me this study 10 days ago or 15 days ago. I don't remember now. But I have the privilege to know it. I don't spoil now more than you. Don't worry. But I think that this is so interesting in different kinds, because when the analysis of the different corridors and speak not about only modal shift or not about only tons, you speak about the trains that we need to these possible future demand that we can have. This is for me so interesting, because we put numbers and we left to speak about, yes, we need more infrastructure, more infrastructure. We only know to speak about infrastructure, but how many trains? 10%, how many trains? 20, 30, 40? We need to know this. We need to know this to the development of this terminal, for the development of this infrastructure, and don't mistake. For that, I want only to finish congratulate for this fantastic study and this first method for looking for flexibility the operation. I think this is more necessary than ever, because we need to focus at how can we be more flexible to this competition that we have with the road. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you. Then now we have finished the opening session, and I kindly ask Efraín Larrea from MCRIT to come here, and also Mr. Luis Bassas, Mr. Josep Maria Ojea, and Mr. Valentí Ambrós to come here in order to start the presentation of the study we have done, okay? What we are doing, it's not finished. Okay, then now we will continue with the presentation of the study, and the first point, as I explained it to you, is to identify the backbone network. How we have proceeded to identify the backbone network in the European Union, where the 65% of the traffic is today. Then, Efraín Larrea, please go ahead.
Thank you, Joan. Can we bring the presentation up, please? It's just where we left it. Okay, thank you. So this part might be a bit dense, so I'll try to make it as light as possible, okay? There are some mathematics behind this. So what we are trying to do here is to, using all the data that Mr. Amorós has presented just before, that we've gathered about the traffic throughout Europe in all modes, in terms of freight, we want to know where this traffic is located so that we can confidently say where we need to invest first. It's not that we want to leave other places without investment, but we need to prioritize if we want to really achieve this modal shift, because we need a minimum critical mass for that. So what we are doing is using all the data we've gathered in all the sections of infrastructure in Europe for road, rail, and inland waterways. We combine them into, let's say, theoretical corridors that, let's say, make sense. The typical example that we give is the Rhone Valley, where we have a river, we have 2 motorways at each side, and we have 2 railway lines at each side, plus some extra railway passenger in high speed, but we don't count that. And all this is combined, And what we do is to measure the amount of tons that we have in all these sections combined, so that we know in a given cross-section on these big corridors how much traffic we have. And what we do is to rank these sections from most traffic to lowest traffic, and we start picking the ones that have more traffic until we reach a certain threshold. Okay? We have a parameter to play with here. And this parameter is how much traffic in terms of ton kilometers, because we are interested in traffic performance. It's not just tons, it's how far these tons travel. And so what we do is to start adding all these sections until we reach this threshold. The sweet spot we found is about 65%, which is the figure that Mr. Amorós gave earlier. And this results, as you will see, in a more or less continuous network. Okay? And if we do that, we find that using data from 2015, which is the last year that we could get hold of a complete data set of traffic for Europe, this results in 122,000 tons per day. So any section of those big transport corridors that we have in Europe that is above this threshold is above this European level, and so we consider that section to be into what we call the backbone network. Of course, Europe is not homogeneous. We have, let's say, more traffic concentrated in the center of Europe because we have cross-going flows from point to point. And so this means that central countries like Switzerland, like Austria, like Germany, tend to have more traffic because of their own internal traffic and also because of this traffic that passes through. Okay? So this means that this European threshold is not sufficient to cover what is happening in the peripheral countries, peripheral geographically, I mean. Okay? So what we do is to extend the concept of the backbone network, and we analyze what are the thresholds at each individual country. And this means that we determine a new threshold for each country, which means that we are going to be able to pick a kind of second priority level of sections which have lower traffic than the European average, but they are important nonetheless in each of these peripheral countries. This is the aggregated result. This is something that you will be able to access once we publish the online GIS system we are preparing. Okay? In there you will see all these results. You see that we have here the numbers of the resulting network that we are trying to determine. So we are studying about 62,000 kilometers of corridors, not infrastructure, corridors. Infrastructure is much more because, as I said, we have parallel lines in these sections of the corridors. And the threshold for the backbone network is 122,000 per day. And the resulting central backbone network is about 18,000 kilometers in length, which is a bit less than 30% of the total corridors. Okay? And by total corridors, we mean, by the way, what the European Commission defined as European transport corridors, a definition that changed slightly the past month of December. But we include here all the 9 priority corridors. Okay, so it's a big network to analyze. As you see, the extended backbone network adds about 18,400 kilometers more, and you will see below the different thresholds, which are very different. Okay, on the bottom part, let's say we have Croatia with just 22,000 tons per day. So this means that in Croatia, any section above that traffic should be within the national priority. And on the other side of the spectrum, we have countries like the Netherlands with 213,000, so almost double the European threshold. And this is the result. Okay, this will appear, as you see. This link, by the way, I think it's outdated, but no worries. When we publish the study, you'll have access to this map. We see here in blue all the sections that are considered within the central backbone network. So this is the sections that are above this 122,000 tons per day. This is where the traffic is concentrated currently, according to 2015 data, but it has not changed that much. In dark red, we have these sections of the extended backbone network. So the second level priority on the as you see, on the more peripheral countries where we don't have such concentration of passing through traffics. Maybe it's not easy to see. You'll be able to explore it at your own time. There's some gray lines, which are sections that we have also studied, but which are always below the national and European thresholds. Okay, but they are there. Okay, so we have studied them. And you'll see also some pale blue and red sections. Those are sections that are almost at the threshold. And given that we know we don't have an absolute truth here because this is based on statistics and collected data, these are the sections where the traffic is within 2-3% level of the threshold. So these are sections that potentially should be included on these extended and central backbone networks. I stop here for now.
Okay. Thank you, Efrain, for your explanation. Now I kindly ask Lanfranco Sen from Milan to take the floor, if possible, via streaming, please.
Yes. Good morning to everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you, Lanfranco.
And if my presentation can be put on, I can start.
Okay.
As you have seen from the map presented by Efrain, you see that mobility, transport, freight mobility connects places, connects what we have called hubs of the main activities and agglomeration of population in Europe. So to understand and to forecast how the interrelation between mobility and places of, let's say, more accelerated development is done, we have committed ourselves to the project to identify the strategic hubs, that is, those places that are, by the way, most relevant in promoting European growth and competitiveness, but in addition, more potentially impacted by any kind of development. Next slide. So, next slide. So we have tried to define a socioeconomic hub. In this sense, we have said, no, can go back to the definition of the EU strategic socioeconomic hub is the second slide. Okay. This means that we have identified the places with numbers that have been collected by the project that have at least three features. An important population around the core of these hubs, at least 1% of the European population. A good communication systems, that is, it is connected through railways, through motorways, through ports or airports. And they have complementary facilities, which means that the activity of these hubs is dynamic and probably is likely to enhance connections and transport flows, freight transport flows. Next slide. So we started to analyze the different, yes, these are the criteria that we have analyzed. The population is the first variable that defines what is a hub. You see here that there are Europe is differently agglomerated in according to the countries, according to the areas. We have Île-de-France as the first in our range of 30 main hubs, and Hanover as a 30th. In between, you recognize all the main, let's say, demographic concentration of Europe. The next slide shows the fact. The next slide shows the fact that from these hubs, there are a lot of inflows and outflows coming in and going out from those areas in terms of ways of transport, modes of transport, in terms of tons of freight transported every day. There is a very high correlation, but it's not automatic, that if a hub is very highly populated, is also a driver or a place from where and to where tons move. You see the distribution of the hubs, which is different in this case. In fact, the first is the Rhine-Ruhr-Gebiet, and Barcelona-Tarragona, by the way, is the second one in the list, in this classification of 30 hubs. The third variable, next slide. The third variable that we have considered is the value added, in the sense that the value added of goods, that is of agriculture and the manufacturing activity, is a good indicator of what is the potential, the actual and potential development of these areas. In a way, with this indicator, we capture the economic capitals, in brackets, of the different different countries. Again, we see the Rhine-Alp-Gebiet, the Rhine-Ruhr-Gebiet as a first agglomeration, then Milan, by strangely enough, because it's a smaller agglomeration concentration, but it has a great value added, gross value added concentrated in. So with these data, next slide, population, inflows and outflows, and GVA, value added, we have constructed this synthetic index, giving a weight to these three indicators: the population, the GVA, and input-output. A synthetic indicator that allows us to identify what are the most strategic, that is, the most crucial hubs where we have to assess and invest, to assess the level of accessibility in both directions to these places, to certify that the infrastructure are efficient, that operators invest in those areas, and that the potential growth and competitiveness Europe is guaranteed by these by the efficiency of these hubs in Europe. The final map, the final slide, shows the map of what we have called what we have identified as strategic hubs for Europe, and in a also in a perspective of a trans-Eurasian connection. In fact, you see the main strategic hubs colored according to the fact that they are also strategic for the intercontinental connections, or they are interrelated among themselves, or they concern the different countries. This map is what it's a result of the project that links transport and mobility with territorial development. Thank you.
Hello? Okay, now let's move to all that concerns the analysis of the impact of the traffic. But first of all, I will ask again Efraín Larrea to talk about the different scenarios that we're considering and the modeling in order to identify the network and the main nets in the European Union. Go ahead, please.
Thank you again, Joan. This is a bit more dense than before, so we'll try to make it not very academic. This is just to tell you that behind all the results that you are going to see today and what you will be able to read in the final report, there's sound science behind it. Okay. In order to respond to all these questions of where traffic is, where we need to invest, where are the bottlenecks, and so on, given that we are talking about the whole EU, we need something to support that. Okay? And in order to do that, what we've done is to develop a traffic model, which is the typical approach in scenarios like that. Okay? And what we've done is to build a model based, of course, on existing data. The zoning of the model is what it's called NUTS 3. So this should be provinces in Spain, for example, or département in France. We have about 1,460 different NUTS 3 in this model. These are the places where traffic is being generated and attracted in Europe. Okay? All these zones are interconnected by actual infrastructure. Okay? We have condensed that into the corridor sections that we've seen in the previous maps. So these corridors represent whole sections of infrastructure. And behind all that, we have an origin-destination matrix. That is a set of data that tells us how many tons move from each one of these NUTS 3 zones and by mode of transport. And this is data that comes from a project of the European Commission. It's the only currently existing available matrix of flows at this level. Okay, and this is what we are using for our modeling exercise. First, what we do is to prepare this model, and we calibrate it so that we get the exact data that we have measured in traffic for 2015. Okay, because this matrix is a bit older, so we need to make some mathematical things to it so that it conforms to the observed traffic. Once we have that, we can start making scenarios with this model. We play with it. And what we do is to start imposing all those targets that the European Commission says that are desired. We want to achieve 30% of long-distance travel by rail on freight. So what we do is to develop a first midterm scenario, which is scheduled for 2025. We are not going to be there in 2025. We are sure of that. But as our starting point is 2015, it's 10 years after that. And the target for that scenario is 23% of ton kilometers by rail on average in Europe. And there's a long-term scenario, which by 2030, in principle, we should achieve 30% of ton kilometers by rail on average in Europe. So we should be moving from 18% currently in 2015, which is our starting point, to 30%. We are trying to impose an additional condition, which is that it's not just an average in Europe. We want every country to play its part. Okay, so we are trying to force that as much as possible, all countries in Europe try to reach this 30% modal share of rail in ton kilometers. And it's important to know that we've set a threshold. So in our model, all traffic that is below 300 kilometers, we suppose that it will stay as it is. And we impose this modal shift for traffics above 300 kilometers, which should be in principle our target. We know that the sweet spot of cost between road and rail, it's a bit longer. It's usually about 600, 650 kilometers. But we are confident that with our first system that you will see later, we can reduce the cost of intermodality, and so we can lower that threshold. Okay? In fact, if we don't do that, we are not going to achieve this 30%, for sure. Apart from those two scenarios, which we call stagnant, because in those scenarios, we just move some cargo from road to the rail. We have a scenario where we also impose an increase in the total flows to see where more bottlenecks might appear. And on top of that, we have a scenario about the exploration of the possibility of recalibration of traffics for the maritime mode, okay? Because there's a huge concentration of traffics in the ports in the north of Europe, traffics that come from Asia, but that travel along the Mediterranean coast and go up to the north. And well, there's room for a slight reequilibrium in the traffic that still needs to grow. So we explore that. Very quick. These are just first glimpses of these results. Okay, so this is the result of the model. Okay, so when we assign the traffics, this is how it looks like. And as I said, this reflects what we observe in the traffic counts. So given that we know how many tons we have per section in the road, rail, and inland waterway, this is what it looks like when we assign the traffics. Okay, in red you see road, in green rail, and in blue inland waterways. This is the base year, 2015. If we impose a 23% share of rail, we see this, which means that it's almost barely visible, but you see that the red is thinner and the green is thicker. And if we move to 2030, this is even more evident, okay? So this is the change. 1, 2, 3. You see traffic is growing. It's not growing equally everywhere because there are countries where we need to make no effort. Austria is already above 30% of rail in ton kilometers. It's not the same in, I don't know, it's not the same in Spain, in Portugal, or in Greece. It's not the same even in France. It's not even the same in Germany. Germany is currently about 25%, so it needs to step up to get to 30% in the end. Okay? And this is the result for this poor equilibrium scenario, which means that there should be extra long-distance containers entering through the ports in the south and going up to the center of Europe. And these are the kind of the results that we can obtain from the model, and which will serve as basis for the analysis that we will see next. This is just, for example, the amount of tons that we have per NUTS 3 in the French regions. Okay, this is the tons, total tons, considering all modes together. We can make the analysis at the level we want. So we can, for example, aggregate at NUTS 2. So this should be the region, I think it's region, yes, which were the ones that changed 5 years ago, by the way. But okay, we can make this kind of aggregations, and so we can study things at the level we need. This is especially relevant because you may know that, for example, Germany is broken down into so many tiny regions that we need to make some aggregation so that the results are meaningful. And these are the results finally for Spain, just as an illustration of what we get. It's important to stress again that this is traffic over 300 kilometers in distance. And this is the picture. We see, let's say, three main big players here, no surprise. The big one is Barcelona, and the other two are Valencia and Madrid. In fact, Valencia and Madrid here are at the same level because the long-distance traffic between them is the traffic that comes from the port and goes to the region of Madrid. Okay, so as I said, no surprise here. So as I said, all these results are what are going to fit the analysis that we are going to see next about bottleneck analysis and sizing and on the needs of the terminals. Thank you.
Now we will move to the analysis of these scenarios, these traffic scenarios, in the intermodal terminals and in the interconnection links. Okay? We have analyzed in detail practically almost all the terminals in Europe, and we will see which parameters we have been utilizing for this analysis. Then I kindly ask Luis Bassas to take the floor, please.
Aquest és el next. Molt bé. Good morning, everyone. Well, we have analyzed from several sources, all the terminals we have looked for, and we have seen how are they fitted in order to to give the intermodal possibilities. In this sense, we have made sessions for checking the data and so, and no va. S'ha de funcionar això, tu. Now, well, and these are we have also the stakeholders asking how the terminals are working and which expansions possibilities they have. No? The basic key characteristics of each intermodal terminal, we have determined this, no? The information of contact, who is the managers, modes of served, rail or road or waterway, opening hours, it means how can the trucks come in, come out, total terminal area in order to know how large is the possibility of stacking, the number and usable length of tracks for loading and unloading, and the number of usable length tracks for marshalling. It means for forming or splitting trains. No? Of course, the equipment for do the transshipment. It means the number of granting claims and the number of reach stackers. And they are the main or the most important elements. No? And then, of course, each terminal has the possibility of expansion plans, and we have asked them which are there. From the marshalling yards, they are existing in Europe. We have analyzed all the capacity and the possibility of forming and splitting trains. And of course, marshalling yards are not so important for the transshipment. It is an internal issue of the railway system. No? And for each terminal, we have analyzed this. We have done a split or a screen. We have with Google Maps and so we have done a sheet for each terminal in which we are marking the gantry cranes, the reach stackers, and we have done the analysis of the possibilities of capacity of transshipment in each terminal, no? Thinking that we can work most of the time in the week, and that is all myself.
We have to say that in the study we will have a table like this for basically all the terminals in Europe. This will be quite interesting for everybody. Well, now I will kindly ask to take the floor José María Ojea, that will talk about the interconnection between terminals.
Good morning, everybody. Well, the first step to do to analyze and define the interconnection link between the strategic hubs and the other cities is to collect data referent to infrastructure key parameters that we have considered as requirements. For instance, the length of the trains, the loading gauge, the signaling implementation, the number of tracks, the existence of bottlenecks, speeds, acceptance, track slope, and the issues, operation issues and rolling stock issues. We have collected this and we have prepared the tables including all these key parameters, section by section, country by country, and corridor by corridor. In the case of the expected passenger traffic growth, we are according with the Staff Working Document Commission in Brussels from 2021 that expected this project growth about 44% by 2030, relative to 2015. That's representing the period 2015-2018, a growth of about 2% in national passenger traffic and 2 and 4% in international traffic. This international traffic don't affect to our study because it's made by high-speed lines and don't affect to the freight traffic. We have forecasted from 2022 to 2030 an increasing by year of 2%. And all this includes the corresponding transfer from plane to rail for distance between 300 and 700 kilometers away. Those represent about 5%. Also, we have defined the bottlenecks. Also, section by section, corridor by corridor, and country by country. And we have prepared the tables. When a section becomes a bottleneck, it is colored. Each color represents a different horizon. Yellow is today, green 2025, blue is 2030 with stagnant traffic, and pink is 2030 with 20% of traffic growth and reequilibrium in the ports. You can see this is at the tables from Spain. And you can see that in the Silla Valencia, for instance, and in the Martorell Castellbisbal today are bottlenecks. And we have to solve this. In the case of the connection between Ebro axis with the Mediterranean corridor axis, we have that from Lleida to Tarragona, or from Lleida to Martorell, Lleida, Tarragona, Tarragona, Martorell, Lleida, Sant Vicenç de Calders, Sant Vicenç de Calders, Martorell, o directly Lleida, Martorell, we have traffics a day over the European average threshold, 122,000 tons by day. In the case of Lleida, Martorell, we have no railway. In the other cases, yes. It's by this that it's necessary to project and to do a new railway from Lleida, Cervera, Igualada, Martorell. We have aided the traffic of the 3 roads that there are. The A2 from Lleida to Martorell, the AP7 from Lleida to Tarragona, to San Vicente de Calders, Vendrell, and the National 420 from Lleida to Tarragona. The difference in the passenger trains in San Vicente going to Martorell is by they are San Vicente from the coastal line to Barcelona that is only permit to passenger traffic, no freight traffic. Well, all this, we have some of the actions that we have suggested for the improvement of the Mediterranean corridor, are the following. A new bypass by the east in Lyon, connecting south with east and north, and the Mediterranean corridor with the North Sea Mediterranean. Also, the new line, high-speed line, Montpellier-Perpignan, mixed traffic and passengers to do this. Also, the new line from Cervera to Martorell, because today is Lérida, Cervera, Manresa, Martorell. We propose Cervera, Igualada, Martorell, and also a new bypass in Martorell, another side, the existing bypass. Also, we propose 4 tracks in the section Tarragona-Castellón. Are projected 2 tracks in international gauge. We propose 4 tracks. And also, we propose a new railway lines in the surrounding of Murcia. Well, that's our proposal that we have. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your explanation. I don't know, Arnau, you have something else to add to this? Very fast, please, because we are a little bit in a hurry.
Okay, bon dia a tothom, good morning everyone. If we can recover the presentation, please. Okay, now, as well as for the interconnection links, we have also analyzed how the future scenarios will impact on the intermodal terminals all around the European Union. In order to carry out this analysis, we have these tables that you can see on the screen. Now, I will be very synthetic because I know that we don't have such much of time. On the left side of the table, the first column, we have the 30% of the total amount of land transport tons in every NUTS region, so in any region in Europe. Then the following one is the reality today. In the case of the Department of l'Hérault, only 4,000 tons are going in and out daily by train, mainly by point-to-point train. So this is today's reality compared to the target that the European Commission set. On the middle, we have how will the 2030 scenarios impact on the intermodal terminals capacity for each region. So we had the assumption that in the 2030, even the point-to-point trains will improve at least a 10% in central countries, whereas only a 30% in the peripheral countries. So let's be optimistic, okay? And then on the right side of the table, we can see the difference between the 30%, so the target for each region, and today's reality. This number means that all these tons daily going in and out of this region must be transferred from road to the railway. So, in order to achieve this, we need new terminals and a new system that we will explain you later on. Then, to determine terminals capacity, we use a series of raters that has been contrasted with some of our members who are terminal operators, and we determine the theoretical maximum capacity, okay? The white color are currently existing terminals in every region, but not only terminals, also the industries, okay? Whereas the green ones are terminals used by the piggyback only and exclusively piggyback terminals. As I said, we will need some additional terminals to absorb the increase of tones. Then we need the new terminals that you could see colored in yellow or orange. Then at the bottom of each table, we have the balance. And we will see if the the region has enough capacity or not to absorb current and future traffic regarding tones. This is an example of the province of Barcelona, and we have far more industries and terminals than the other ones in France. Then, for each country, we do a synthesis in which we experimentate in efficiency. The less shifts we work, or the less days we work, the less efficiency we will have on terminals. That's why we have these negative figures at the bottom of the table. As well as for the lines, we have a specific map regarding every single improvement action for terminals. This is, for instance, the enlargement of the terminal in Granollers, existing one, to the south. Then we have the expansion of Font de Sant Lluís, located in Valencia, a new railway terminals in the future dock of El Gorgel, because we also take into account projected actions in ports and inland terminals. And finally, we have a new terminal located in a marshalling yard in the surroundings of Dijon. This is, for example, the summary or the map concerning all new terminals needed in the case of Spain. And we have the same for France. These circles that you can see on the screen will be the origin and destination of these new kind of trains that we call first trains that we will explain you later on. So that's all by my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Arnau, quédate aquí. Now I kindly ask Valentin Bros to take the floor. You will talk later. Well, now I kindly ask Terry Van Islander from Antwerpen University to take the floor regarding the interconnection of main Chinese hubs with main European hubs, okay? Terry, are you connected?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, and I hope you can see my slides also?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, that's fine. So I will briefly also, given the time delay, give you the results of the Trans-Eurasian Railway Network analysis we have been looking at. Now, what we have done is first have a look into existing traffics, and I will not go too deep in this, but what we can say is in the last 5 years approximately, this traffic has been growing by a factor 5 to about 500,000 TEU in 2020, with about 3,000 trains running in 2020 towards China. Or towards Europe, sorry, from China. And then in the other direction, towards China, we have around 2,000 trains running, at least in 2020. So here you can see again, with these colors on this graph also, the number of trains. So clearly there is more traffic going from China to Europe, of course, than there is traffic going from Europe to China. What are the most transported goods on this connection? Well, you can see them top left. They are basically electrical devices, they are mechanical equipment and automotive, also cars of various types and components for cars also. So as you can see, rather high value goods, which is also logical because the main gain to be made by using this rail connection rather than to put the cargo into containers on ships is the time gain that is made. The time is cut from, on average, 35 days to approximately 15 to 20 days if the train is taken rather than the ship. Now we have compared the costs a bit more in detail for 3 possible connections: the land-based connection, so with rail, the maritime connection, the most used one, I would say, and then the air connection also. And you can see top right, we have been doing this for 7 connections between 7 Chinese cities and 7 European cities. If we look at the calculations for the costs, and here the costs include both the operational cost and also the value of time, because that's also a cost to the owner of the cargo and the owner of the transport equipment, of course. You can see that for rail, these are the results for rail, we end up at around 3,500 euros, depending a bit on the commodity type. You can see here with the different colors, different commodity types represented. We also made a comparison between rail, maritime, and air. So, for instance, in this second column for the different routes that we looked at, you can see the factor of cost of rail versus maritime. And there we get between 1 and 2. That means that rail is as expensive, up to double as expensive on average as maritime transportation. If we compare with air transport, for instance, the column next to that, you can see that air transport compared to maritime transport is way more expensive, which is also quite logical. Now, this is the standard situation with standard equipment, standard trains, standard durations, waiting times, etc. We also looked into a number of sensitivity scenarios where, for instance, the transportation time is made shorter by 1 day or 2 days, and where longer trains are being used. Longer trains, which then typically would lead to a cost reduction of about 25% operational cost reduction. So we used these scenarios to see what the total cost of ownership would be and the total cost of transportation would be, including also, again, the time cost. So here you can see the results. Basically, the impact of having shorter transit times is not that big. You only get a small reduction in the total cost. Whereas if we go for a scenario with longer trains, we typically get a very strong cost reduction. There we managed to reduce the cost by about 30%, which is a very strong cost reduction. So there is a clear incentive to use longer trains on this connection between China and Europe. This table summarizes the cost factor comparison again. So we had for each route in the first column the figures, so between 1 and 2, as we said before. And then you can see what the impact is of reducing the transit time by 1 day or 2 days. And you can also see what the impact is of making longer trains. Basically, with longer trains in most connections, we managed to reduce the cost to the same level approximately as the cost of maritime transportation, which is quite a big achievement, of course. The previous slide was for high-tech goods. We can do the same for consumer goods, which are basically somewhat lower value goods, but even there you can see that with longer trains we managed to reduce further the cost. The cost is reduced by having longer trains rather than the currently shorter trains that we are having on this connection. So the end message is there is potential on this Trans-Eurasian connection, especially if we manage to improve the situation with shorter transit times and with longer trains that are being used. And that's the end of my message. Thank you.
Okay, let's go now to present the fare system. I don't know, we have some slides, 2 slides regarding the Trans-Eurasian transportation. Or now we have this? No? No. Okay. Well, please go ahead with the presentation. Okay. Well, thank you. Well, let's make a fast explanation of this system. In fact, As you know, in the 19th century and in the first third of the 20th century, we used to utilize the isolated wagon transportation, but when we have better motorways and better tracks, practically such kind of transport system has disappeared almost all over Europe. Then now we have basically compact trains and point-to-point trains all over Europe, and isolated wagons are only utilized in some specific case in chemicals or something like that. Then the idea of that system is to change the criteria of isolated wagon to isolated intermodal logistic mode, you see. Then, in that case, as I said, the idea is to move such kind of intermodal units from road to rail or to barge or to vessel, etc., everywhere. And, as I said, the point is to put the train at the service of the road in a way of mobility as a service, okay? Then, what are the requirements of this system? First of all, we need intelligent trains with automatic couplings and electric interconnection between freight wagons. This is very clear. We need dual locomotives. In fact, in this system, we will completely avoid the shunting locomotives. The terminals will be pass-through terminals. We don't require such kind of locomotives, any kind of shunting movements. Then we need dual or hybrid locomotives. That means with electrical power through the catenary or with batteries or even with some auxiliary diesel engine. Another key point is the pass-through terminals. We have to completely abandon the existing dead-end terminals, except in the case of the harbors. And also, we have to integrate completely the transport between road and rail. Then, basically, the terminals that we propose, we will have what we call fast-moving tracks, in which the train will stop only for a few minutes, very few minutes, and we'll take a trailer or a container or a swap body, and we'll continue. Another that we call fast moderate, in which the train could stop a little bit more and could take even till 1/3 of the train. And finally, what we call moderate slow, that is where in the terminal we fit a complete train. And in both sides of the terminal, we need what we call buffers. All that concerns the marshalling disappear in this system, and only we would like to have buffers in order to accelerate or deaccelerate the trains in order that they take the main line at an average speed. On the other hand, what we could utilize these buffers is if the loading area is full of trains, okay? Then, this is the cost of the terminals without including the land. It could be between 15 million euros till 2 million euros, depending of the shape of the terminal. This is the kind of terminal that we would like to have. This is, in the central part, we will have the loading and loading and some buffers in order to wait trains if there is, like the terminal is loaded, is completely full, and also to utilize for accelerate or decelerate. This is the bigger terminal with 6 loading and unloading tracks. There is another intermediate terminal like this, in which we only have 2 tracks, and with the buffers in each side. And even we have what we call mini, in which the train stops only to take 1 container and then continue immediately, okay? The problem in Europe is, as I said, that basically all the terminals are dead-end terminals. We don't understand why, but it's like this, with a lot of movements, a lot of problems, and even practically all of them have less than 740 meters length. Many of them have 200 meters, 300 meters, incredible. But this is the situation, okay? Another situation. The marshalling yards are almost abandoned in Europe because the isolated wagon system practically has disappeared. And this is the situation. We can take advantage of these empty marshalling yards to install such new terminals that we are proposing. This is another marshalling yard completely abandoned. You see, this is the situation in Europe, frankly speaking. Then we have to move to a completely new system, fully integrated. And here you have in the right-hand side the two hubs that we have been, Franco Sen have been talking about. And with these two hubs, we will have full trains that goes directly, but also we have trains that will stop at request in the intermediate terminals. Okay, this we have several levels of implementation of such kind of trains, but the idea is that we have all the land transport fully interconnected. We have to know where are the tracks, where are the wagons, which is the situation in each terminal, and to integrate all this in a single system, okay? From shippers to final destination. This is the idea. Of course, we need some central control in Europe, like the planes. We have a central control in Europe, and we have also some disseminated control areas all over Europe. This is what we need, and we could really know if there is one train that starts from Barcelona to Frankfurt, and we know that there is one track that is from Carcassonne to Narbonne, the train has to stop there to take the trailer and to continue. This is the basic idea of this system. We will have several levels of implementation of this system, and of course, we need RTMS fully implemented. This is key in order to introduce new trains in the line. Another important point is to have such kind of central control, and of course, what we need as well is to have the intelligent trains, as I said, because it is important that we know perfectly well each wagon which kind of container of semi-trailer is transporting, okay? This is what we are looking for. And the basic requirements to transfer from road to rail, of course, is the minimum number of tractors or number of semi-trailers that we require, because, of course, if we have one distribution center in Frankfurt, another in Barcelona, of course, we need head tractors there and semi-trailers there. Then the company that is doing this transport has to have enough quantity of trucks. In fact, we have analyzed country by country. This is, I think, is France. And here you can see the number of trucks with trailers that are in France. We have country by country all this information. And practically, according to the comments with road transporters, if they have about 20 to 50 trucks, this could be easily made. If not, if the road transporters have less than this, they have to operate like a pool. We have to have an agreement with one transporter in the area of Frankfurt, another area of Barcelona, to make the final distribution. This is the same case in Spain. And of course, one point that is very important is that we like to make a test of this system. Test of this system that probably will be made north-south and also east-west in Europe, but it's something else that still is under analysis. It's not so easy to install such system, but believe me, if we don't install this system, we never will move from road to rail, because the rail has to be flexible enough to get the service of the customers. If not, it's completely impossible to go forward with this situation. Then we have different kind of trains, as I said. Still, we will continue with point-to-point trains. This is clear, because probably between Frankfurt and Barcelona, we can have one daily train complete. But what happens in Girona? What happens in Montpellier? What happens in Lyon? What happens in Koblenz? What happens? What happens? Then this is the problem. That we need to introduce in the system all the requirements in the intermediate terminals as well, okay? Then, one other point that we have analyzed, in order to demonstrate that without this system it's impossible to move, this is the case of Ile-de-France. In the case of Ile-de-France, perhaps now you have better sight than me. You could read this because come here. Well, in the case of Ile-de-France, practically you can continue and to tell this. We only have, in the case of Ile-de-France, the possibility of complete trains to two destinations. This is the problem, and this represents only a few percentage. Vinga, va, tira. Yes, please.
Which are basically Marseille and the hub of Barcelona-Tarragona. Now, how it works. The green stripes represents the total land traffic. So we have the total amount of tons going daily from Ile-de-France to Marseille and Barcelona and so on. Then the blue color represents the 30%, so this target that we need to achieve from road to rail. As you can see, is a lower amount of tons. As Mr. Amorós said, we can cover only 2 point-to-point trains from Ile-de-France, one going to Marseille and the other one going to Barcelona. And then, what are we going to do with the rest? So this is showing us that we need this new type of trains to cover the rest of the destinations. If we see this in the ABC graphic, we can see that only a 10% of tons transported over 300 kilometers from Ile-de-France to the rest of Europe are covered by point-to-point trains. So the rest of it will need to be covered by first trains. Here is the map of the destination and the total amount of tons for each one. This is the case as well for Ile-de-France, but we have the same case for the agglomeration of Milano in Italy. In this case, we have a bit more destinations from Rhine-Neckar to Luxembourg, maybe Rhine-Ruhr-Gebiet. But as well as Paris, this is only 15% of the total amount of tons going over 300 kilometers. Here is the map of Milan. You can see the different destination and its amount of tons. And finally, we have the example of Barcelona and Tarragona. Here we have more destinations, especially in the Iberian Peninsula, which represents almost the 50% of total tons over 300 kilometers covered by point-to-point trains. But the rest, as I said, will need to be covered by first trains. And here is the map for Barcelona-Tarragona hub.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you. Well, this is basically, we are still analyzing this in more detail, but this is basically to demonstrate that without such kind of trains, it's impossible to move. No, next one. Well, Valentí, could you come in 5 minutes to make a short explanation regarding the requirements in rolling stock? Escurça al màxim perquè anem com...
Good morning to everybody. Until now we have spoken about tracks and roads and so on, but for these tracks or in these tracks we must move trains. Let's speak just a little about the trains, the composition of the first trains. First the operation, and then we will center specifically in the rolling stock. The operation. The first train, as said before, must be load and unload for the loads. In this case, we can load in these trains semi-trailers, containers, and swap bodies. We must differentiate between accompanied combined transport and unaccompanied combined transport. For the accompanied combined transport, the only alternative existing today is the rolling motorway, the Rollende Landstraße, as they say in Germany, and they load the complete trucks, the tractor and the trailer, in the train, enter from one end, the drivers travel in this train, in this coach of the passengers, and they are used mainly to cross the Alps. It means that the countries where this motorway exists is mainly Switzerland and Austria. If we want to move only semi-trailers, containers, and swap bodies, we must use horizontal loading or vertical loading. For horizontal loading, at this moment exist two systems. There are the most important, and they are only for semi-trailers and complete trucks. If we use the vertical loading with reach stickers or cranes, we can load in the train semi-trailers, containers, swap bodies, small trucks, etc. The semi-trailers could be cranable and non-cranable. The semi-trailers non-cranable could not be taken with a reach sticker. They need a reinforcement, and sometimes it's used a basket. A basket, at this moment, there are two kinds of baskets. It's from Cargo Beamer and from R2L system developed by VTG. There are another option for the non-cranable trailers to use this kit. This is a kit with an approximate cost of 6,000 euros that could convert non-cranable trailers in cranable. And then they can load in the trains with reach stickers or cranes. The first trains must be intelligent trains. It means that all the information must be connected and sent to the locomotive or sent to another center. If we want a train to be intelligent train, we need the digital automatic coupling. At this moment, in Europe has been defined this kind of coupler, as is called Scharfenberg, for use in the goods wagons. The European Commission says that in 2030, all the wagons must be converted, and also, obviously, the locomotives. Take care that at this moment in Europe, there are 550,000 wagons to be converted. It means in 7 years, we must use more than 1 million digital automatic couplers. We will see what will happen in 2030. By the moment, Fermet is a member of the Work Package 3, sponsored by Shift to Rail, dealing with the migration in all the European rolling stock from the screw coupler, that is the present coupler, to the digital automatic one. And let's talk a little bit about the wagons we can use. There are several types of wagons we can use in the first trains. This is one example. It is the T3000E wagon, called also SDGGMRSS. It's a 6-axle wagon. It means that it's two-articulated wagon able to load semi-trailers, mega-trailers, Big Macs, containers for 20, 40, 30, and 45 feet, swap bodies. We will see a picture of a wagon of this type, load with a semi-trailer and two containers of 20 feet. The load scheme will be this. In this case, we have the wagon with two 30-feet containers, the wagons with 4 swap bodies of 7.82 meters, the wagons with 40-feet containers, the wagons with the semi-trailers, and the wagons with the 20-feet containers. We have defined the wagons. Let's define the locomotives. The first train is intended to load 2,000 tons. For a train that loads 2,000 tons, we need a necessary starting tractive force in the locomotive, as you see on the table, depending on the slope of the track. This is to start the train. But once the train is moving, we need this power in kilowatts to achieve these speeds, 60, 100, 120. The first trains and all the wagons we have seen are intended to go to 120 kilometers per hour. With these needs of starting tractive effort and power, we have several locomotives in the market we can use. At this moment, the only one that covers all the scenarios is the Euro 9000 from Stadler, but there are others that, depending on the different scenarios, could be used. It's not a restrictive table, this. And this is how the first trains must be composed: pocket wagons and locomotives. These locomotives, especially the first one, as I said before, is a dual locomotive. It means that could move on electrified tracks and non-electrified tracks. He has a powerful diesel motor. The other locomotives have diesel motors not so powerful, that only permits the train to enter in the terminals and nothing else. But with the first one, we can move for non-electrified tracks. And this is all regarding the rolling stock. Thank you.
Okay, now is the turn to move to users of the transport system. And then I kindly ask Madame Alba Carré, General Manager of Calzina Group, to take the floor, please. And also I ask Eduard Gracia to come here. And Josep Maria Rovira, please. And Pierre Escodo, please take a seat. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Before starting my presentation, I wanted to just give you a glance on who we are, just a brief introduction. Basically, Calzina Carré is a multinational company. It's a logistics operator. It has been in the market for 50 years. We're actually today celebrating this year our 50th anniversary. We are specialized in transport and in logistics, specifically in road transport. And within this road transport, we are doing full truckloads and groupage. We are, in order to provide these services, we have a fleet of more than 1,000 vehicles, and we also have facilities with more than 150,000 square meters where we provide with warehouses our logistical services. In terms of presence, we are specialized in all that has to do with Europe, but also Maghreb, so the north of Africa. Now you might be wondering, why am I here if I just said that I'm a road transport company? I'm here, first of all, because, sorry, this is not the presentation. Okay. I will do it without the presentation because this is the wrong one. Basically, I'm here because we do believe in intermodal, right? For us, intermodal is the future. And why is intermodal the future? I'm sorry because no, this one is the right one. Okay, let me take it back. We believe the future is intermodal, and I'm here to explain why a road or an originally road transport company has evolved the thinking and has started to believe that intermodal can be the future. And also, of course, because Mr. Amorós was very kind to invite us here and to be able to provide the point of view from a transport company who can be, at the end, one of the main users of the train or the railway in that case, but we do not always have the audience to put it into the table. Why do we believe the intermodality is the future? We have been covering this before in the presentation. Of course, there's one reason, which is the green and the future commitment. I want to stress this point because although it's obvious, when it comes to trucks, it's not that obvious. There has been many progress done, especially in national transport when it comes to last mile and when it comes to urban transport in terms of technologies. We have electrical trucks, we have gas trucks that do have the right to play in this national or low distance market. But when it comes to international, there is today no technology that is fulfilling, no truck technology that is fulfilling the need to provide long-distance service in a more sustainable way than it is today, the train. So this is very important. Second one is because of the drivers. The drivers, we have said before that there is a scarcity of drivers, there is a drivers shortage challenge. We are not saying that the train needs to substitute the drivers, not at all. We are a drivers company and we will keep on betting for drivers. But what the train can offer to a driver is a different role for the driver where they have more flexibility. They do not need to do the long distance trip, end up sleeping somewhere else in bad conditions because they can do only the initial and the final part of this trip and they can then therefore have better conditions, be at home, etc., etc. This will help us also close or break the barrier of the driver. Then, in order, where are we today as a company? We have been doing 1,000 trips per month. We started our journey in intermodality just 3 years ago. Today, we have already 1,000 trips per month in this mode of transport. I'm talking specifically railway here. We are connecting from France, we are connecting all the rural area, the east area from Romania. You see all the lines that we're doing today in the picture. And our objective is aggressive. We want to double these numbers. And we also want to connect with Maghreb, which is the north of Africa. It's another piece of homework that needs to be done. Spain is strategically connected and located in order to do so. And there are also some projects in this direction. How has been our journey and what have we learned in this journey? Well, we started taking the decision of converting all our fleet. So all our trailers were converted in a target of 3 years' time to what we call the P400 or Huckepack system, which is basically what was just mentioned before. It's a vertical loading trailer that can be placed in a pocket wagon, like the ones that were just mentioned, which gives us the flexibility to have exactly the same dimensions of what we do today by road, but placing it in a train. There are many lines starting to increase also in Europe with this type of service and this type of wagons. Second thing that we had to do is adapt our drivers' job, not only from international to domestic, but also to create these hubs for them in different regions in Europe where they need to have somewhere, because drivers, well, not we, but I would say that sometimes society forgets that drivers are persons. They need conditions, and they need somewhere an infrastructure in any end point of the terminal. We also had to make an operational change in terms of the teams. Here I have to say that the main barrier was the culture of the road transport mentality. I'm very proud to say that we changed this. We have a part of our team here that led this change. We are integrating with the suppliers. We cannot lose traceability because we start going into the train. We need to trace with the supplier of the terminal as well. And last but not least, we need to tell the client that this is an alternative service, but this is not a saving area. This is a different way of doing the transport, which can help him also meet the ecological targets that are every day more and more common, but this, when it comes to the transport company, it means more time for the drivers, it means more risk because it's more connections, so it does not come always with a saving linked to it. What, if we were to look ahead, which are the key requests that we would do from our point of view in terms of making sure that more companies, more road companies can jump into the train? We need flexibility. I think Senor Amorós mentioned before, we need to put the train at the service of the road. I think this is the only way to make it happen. In order to have flexibility, we need to have the right wagons in the terminals to get into. We need the terminals to be located in not passenger hubs, but I'm going to be very fast, not passenger hubs, but goods hubs, right? Outside of the traffic jam of Paris, we need something that can be quick for the driver. We need flexible on-the-go systems such as FIRST, and we need frequency, schedule, opening times, everything that can help overcome the flexibility barrier that the train is very much linked into it. Last but not least, and again, I have to request that the terminals are also prepared for the transport companies that are going to be joining them. So we need parking, we need services for our drivers as part of this whole European terminal new design plot that has been mentioned. So thank you very much. I went very fast because I had someone here keeping me the time. Thanks, and I hope it's useful for any other road transport to jump into this journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, in the case of FIRST system, basically the trains are quite useful for manufacturing goods and agri-food goods. Then now I kindly ask Mr. Pierre Escodo, editor of Eurofresh magazine, to take the floor, please.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, Joan, for inviting me and share my view of how the train can be also very beneficial for the fresh produce sector. We're all impressed about the study and the solution. The first solution recommended. Now there is no more excuse for both for the public transport, public sector to make investments, and also for the private sector to put more solutions for the industry. I would say that in addition to other industrial sectors and other fast consumer good sectors, the fresh produce and food sector has an additional requirement. Is a consumer. The consumer is demanding more and more products on the shelves. Products on the shelves with a low or zero carbon footprints. The younger consumers are more and more aware about the climate impact rather than traditional subjects of food security like residues. Just a few words about the Eurofresh distribution magazine I'm publishing. We've been published for 23 years as a leading global publication specialized in the B2B of fresh fruit and vegetables. We cover 80 markets with both paper edition, web and weekly newsletters. We also do annual editions. Like Azerfresh distribution, we started in China two years ago with the pandemic because people could not travel to China. Still, we cannot travel to China. Now, people saying we cannot receive the tourists, but also the suppliers. So we've been happy to increase coverage of a market that we've been covering for 15 years, but with a specific Chinese English publication where we see they're a bit more advanced or delayed, but in most cases advanced in some solutions, like retail solutions, like e-commerce, we all know. Last time I covered the fresh logistics China exhibition 3 years ago in Shanghai. I was surprised by how there was the director of Samsung. The director of Samsung was exhibiting there at the fresh logistics exhibition. The director of logistics of Samsung Asia. Why? And he was demonstrating that they have the same objective as fresh produce, to have efficient logistics. By the way, electronics is one of the main goods, is a main consumer good using the train to Europe. As Ms. Carré said, yes, the B2C logistics solutions are much more advanced, and the Chinese are the most advanced in this. Like they've been testing and started to use 3 years ago already drones for 20 kilometers and 80 kilometers home deliveries distances to be both effective, more costly, and more sustainable, using drones up to 80 kilometers range to deliver mainly rural areas. And so one more obligation of all the sector is to comply with a new Green Deal of the European Commission of 30% target. There is a farm to fork objective for the agriculture, which actually fully converge within the European Green Deal, which actually fully converges with the objective of climate neutrality and sustainable transport. And I would say that also the farm to fork objective is to increase 30% organics cultivation. But organics cultivation is a bit better for environment and soil, but it's more impacting for the climate. The footprint of the organics is higher, so it's one more reason for our sector to use the train as a more sustainable transport, because as long as the agriculture is increasing its organic production, it's increasing its footprint because it's less productive. And we are happy that in this the sector started to use some private solutions like Primavia, the joint venture between Primafrio and Via France, to use trailers, reinforced trailers to be loaded on trucks. We see Cargo Beamer. Indeed, the next generation consumer. I was in Brussels 2 weeks ago. They highlighting the next generation consumer program and the objectives of our sector. They will be more happy with more higher use of train, and it's so this is a solution for Cargo Beamer. They project to have to increase their network by 2030. And they have a plan to start a line from Barcelona. So we all are well explained now about the first solution. And I would say that we're still waiting for a first regular weekly train use for fruit and vegetables in Europe. So far, the only solution using train on a regular basis is a weekly train between Antwerpen to load banana to Switzerland. So the only today's annual use of train is for non-European products to deliver a non-EU country, which is Switzerland. So so far only 2 regional solutions are used, from Valencia to Germany to the discount chains, just for a couple of months, and from Perpignan to Rungis in winter. Thank you so much. And we invite you to our 5th International Congress on Organic Fresh Produce called BioFruit Congress. We organize October 4th in Madrid with Fruit Attraction. Thank you and see you there.
Thank you very much. We are arriving to the end of the presentation, and I kindly ask Eduard Gracia to take the floor in order to explain the environmental and socioeconomic analysis of the study. Please, go ahead.
Good morning, almost good afternoon. Indeed, if we can put the slides on, we are going to see now the portion of the study that deals with social, economic, and environmental impact of the recommendations that you have just seen. You can see the slides, please. Okay, let me get on with some of the information. The study, as you will see, includes the usual things that you would expect. So a cost-benefit analysis, net present value, the assessment not only of the operational cost, but also of the externalities that you gain when you move cargo from road to rail, as well as the assessment of whether or to what extent. Oh, here it is. Fantastic. So as I was saying, it encompasses the things that you would expect. Operational efficiency. Can you please move to the... Oh, okay, fine. Maybe I can manage it from here. The externalities, the investments that you require, the cost-benefit analysis, the potential for terminal privatization, something we will not deal with fully at this point, and also what would be the profitability of intermodal terminals. Now, a few preliminaries. Today, the road market in Europe is fairly fragmented, but therefore is quite competitive. The rail market is not like that. We all know that there are a lot of inefficiencies in the rail market in Europe. We won't get into details, but one of the key assumptions in the study is that by 10, 15 years from now, those inefficiencies will be largely resolved thanks to liberalization in the European Union. So there is an assumption there around that. The second bit is, obviously you know that the longer the trip, the more efficient the rail transportation is. If you look at current numbers, by 565 kilometers, it starts to be cost competitive. If you count how much how long the trip is when you go today, when you go today over 300 kilometers, typically the trip is about 645 kilometers long on average. So that's what we have used for our... This always happens to me. I present the last, and then they tell me to cut it short. Okay, well, I will. Okay. I'm going to then skip the pieces of the analysis, and I'm going to go to a few slides, and then we'll be done. First, overall, this is the overall cost of road transportation and rail transportation. What you see is, in blue, you see the operator's portion of the transportation. You should just believe me, because it's in the previous slides, that has been built bottom-up, taking one by one all the components of that cost. And what you see in the different green shades is the externalities, primarily pollution, CO2, and the like. Again, you will have to believe me that has been built up using the guidance of the DC Move, a portion, a section of the European Commission, to understand what the cost was. And what you see is that the gains are significant. If you move 1 ton of cargo from road to rail, you can gain about 10% of operational efficiency gains, 42% pollution reduction, also 17% of other externalities. This, by the way, does not include the gain that the transport company makes by not using diesel, which has a lot of taxes on it. We could get into detail at another point when they allow me a bit more. Okay, so using these, you can assess what's the benefit of moving from road to rail as the recommendations state. And we have done this for France. We don't have the results for the whole of Europe, but just to highlight that we have done the estimations for France using particularly restrictive, pessimistic assumptions. So, for example, we assume that shifting a ton from road to rail increases the rail investment, because you need to invest to allow that capacity and the maintenance, but does not decrease the maintenance of the road network that you have just left. That's obviously very pessimistic. We assume that there is no residual investment after 30 years, that the investments will not see benefits until 2034, and the like. So we are basically being very pessimistic. What you're going to see now, therefore, are net present values under very pessimistic assumptions. Logically, you would see more benefit than this. What you see here is for the overall network. And just a couple of highlights. First, the last column is the total net present value. As you see, clearly the benefit of the move is not under dispute. Second, the main benefit is related to externalities, to CO2 reduction, particularly to pollution reduction. That's where the big benefit is. Third, however, if you consider the operational benefits, basically you have to subtract the operational benefit column from the upfront investments. What you see there is that there are substantial benefits. To look at things in perspective, the overall benefit cost ratio would be 23.5, meaning the benefit is 22.5 times the upfront investment. If you just consider operational benefits, we are saying 2.9, which means that the benefit is 1.9 times the upfront investment. That obviously includes the benefits of FIRST, which, as has been stated before, is a main element of the strategy. And this, just so that you see it, is the benefit you get if you just focus on the central backbone investments. Same thing. It's the same type of benefit, but if you look at the numbers, we are looking at much more favorable numbers. So you focus just on the central backbone network, you get much better numbers. I'm going to almost skip this just to highlight that we are trying to understand which terminals would actually provide enough profit and enough attractive for private investors to actually go into them. So this doesn't need to be necessarily all public investment. Last but not least, basically what we are saying is these results are very preliminary. This is about France, but two key things are first, the benefits are very clear, but there is clearly insufficient time between now and 2030 to get to all the investments you would require. Therefore, you want to focus on primarily central backbone, which is where most of our benefit is. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being here. I don't know if you digues quatre paraules, tu, que pleguem i ja està, tu.
Okay.
Is
the last one? The last one?
The last one.
Okay, thank you so much.
I can ask our Secretary General, José María Rovira, to close the session, please.
Only for the next panel, a little delay.
Visto el panorama que tenemos de una urgencia en terminar la sesión, yo tenía que hacer un poco de resumen en castellano para dejar claros según qué puntos, pero no nos da tiempo para poderlo hacer. Muchas gracias.
Muchísimas gracias y disculpe, pero al final el tiempo, el directo también nos marca un poco todo. Bien, yo creo que hemos podido analizar el Real Way, que era lo más importante, hablar con Joan Amorós, referente de Fermet y yo creo que de todo lo que es este sector. Nos han dado muchos datos muy interesantes, pero tenemos que seguir hablando en este caso de logística marítima, desde el SIL Barcelona con esta edición que ya llega a la número 22 y siguiendo desde Barcelona, que por cierto ayer salió ya en la prensa que se ha convertido en el 5º hub en startups de toda la Unión Europea. Nada, una pausa muy breve y ahora sí nos ponemos con la logística marítima. Hasta ahora.